Well, the PGF is all the things that you like about sports plus jiu-jitsu. So what we've tried to do is take a format that we see that obviously works, which is the sports league model. NBA is set up as a league. The NFL is a league. They run seasons, NHL season, college football season, on down the line. Every sport that's professional that you're like thinking about runs on a season. They play 12 matches throughout the course of the week. Each athlete has 12 matches, Monday through Thursday. And the top 8 go into the playoff bracket on Friday. And so you get a chance to see a storyline get written, which is what people get invested in. People are invested in stories. So I get to watch you rise and fall, and I get to see you fail on night 1 and have an incredible night 3, or I get to watch you scrap your way back into the playoffs and barely make it in, or I get to watch you be the number 1 guy, or I get to watch your dreams get crushed as you didn't make the playoff, or whatever. We have one qualifier. It's on March the 1st. It's in Las Vegas. You can look it up on Smooth Comp. It's free to enter. It's totally free to enter. We're looking for 175-pound athletes. The winner of that qualifier, and I think there's 19 people signed up as of this morning. I think we're like a week and a half out from the qualifier. But really, if you're a 175-pound athlete and you win that qualifier, you're going to automatically get a spot on the roster.
What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down with the man, my favorite commentator in Jiu-Jitsu right now, Brandon Mccaghren. What is up, man?
What's going on, dude? Nice to be here. Thank you.
Dude, thanks for coming back on the show. I know that we talked, I think it was when the show first launched. I think you were one of our first guests that came on, and you talked about how jiu-jitsu helped your mental health and how it helped your life off the mats. So if you're listening to this and you want to hear about Brandon's story, go check out that episode. I'll put the link down below. But today we're here to talk about something special, man. You're doing some crazy stuff with the PGF, trying to take jiu-jitsu mainstream. And I really just want to dive right in and just kind of start with this question. I know it's a big one, but what do you feel is the best way to take jiu-jitsu mainstream through something like the Professional Grappling Federation?
I mean, the number one issue is that there's not enough money for the athletes to feel like they want to pursue it full time. So that's the easiest, most simple answer, is to get more money involved in the sport.
That's something that I noticed watching the PGF, is that it's set up a lot like a regular sporting organization, in that you have very established sponsors, and they're brought up in the same way that you would see in like the NFL or something like that, if that makes sense. Like it's a familiar format. Whereas most jiu-jitsu tournaments, I feel like they don't really do a great job of bringing the sponsors to the limelight. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how are you trying to use sponsors and bring more money into the sport?
Well, so what we do is we look for a title sponsor, like somebody to kind of put their name over the whole event, like presented by whatever the company's going to be. And then each little section of the show, we give to the sponsors as well. So for example, if you want to sponsor the fantasy league, then every time we talk about the fantasy league, then we talk about your brand. Or you want to sponsor the draft. Every time we talk about the draft, then we talk about your brand. But the biggest play, other than the title sponsor, is to sponsor one of the teams. So we split the league into 4 teams, 20 athletes. They split out into 4 teams. Like last season, we had Team Toehold. Toehold actually had 2 teams, but Toehold Red, Toehold Blue, X-Martial had a team, and Epic Roll had a team. And so every time one of these athletes is coming up, if you're on Team Epic Roll, you're going, all right, and here comes Travis Thomas from Team Epic Roll, or here comes Elijah Carlton from Team Level, or whatever it was. So it just gives an opportunity for the sponsors to actually be tied in and involved in the event, rather than just, give us a little bit of money and we'll put your logo on the mat and run a commercial.
Yeah, and that's actually a really key innovation, because most jiu-jitsu tournaments, they're just representing their team. And if you think about it from a business perspective, that team is getting a lot of free promotion that way. And they might not necessarily be compensating that athlete for that promotion. Like, I don't know all the deals that go on behind closed doors or whatnot, but I would imagine that Gracie Barra, for example, is not sponsoring every single person who's out there repping Gracie Barra. Like they're just doing that because they love their team, right? And that's great. But
For sure.
in an organization like yours, they need to be compensated for that because that's a big promotion, right? So I feel like that's something you guys are doing really well.
Thanks, man. And one of the other things that makes the PGF so much more advantageous for a sponsor is that it's a week-long event as well. So, whereas pretty much any other jiu-jitsu event that you watch is some version of the one night tournament, It's a 16-man bracket and the show's going to run for, let's call it 4 hours. And then it's going to be over. Or in a case of a huge tournament, this ADCC, it's going to do that all day for 2 days, but then it's over. But with the PGF, we go from Sunday through Friday, and there's at least 4 hours of content every night. And so you're getting repeated exposure to people who are invested in the storyline. And I think that makes a huge difference for these sponsors. And that's why they keep coming back to the table and doing it again with us, even though prior to this season, we've been a really small regional promotion. We've been able to actually produce for the sponsors, produce some value for the sponsors rather than begging for a handout, which is, I get it. You got to do what you got to do, but I don't want to just take the money. I want you to feel like it was a good relationship and you want to come back to the table again.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, man. I feel like what you're talking about is super important and people don't understand how this stuff works a lot of times. So just to backtrack a little bit, man, let's say that there's someone listening to this and they don't really have any clue what we're talking about. They've never heard of the PGF. Maybe they're a white belt. They just started training. Could you give us kind of a little bit of a rundown on what exactly is the PGF and how does it stand apart from organizations like ADCC or IBJJF? Like what's special about it in your view?
Well, the PGF is all the things that you like about sports plus jiu-jitsu. So what we've tried to do is take a format that we see that obviously works, which is the sports league model. The NBA is set up as a league. The NFL is a league. They run seasons, NHL season, college football season, on down the line. Every sport that's professional that you're thinking about runs on a season. Jiu-jitsu events pretty much always run one night. They use more of the UFC model, the fight night model, right? So what we've tried to do is take it rather than try to do the best version of the one night model. What we've tried to do is take that model that we know this already works in quote unquote real professional sports. Let's stretch jiu-jitsu across that model and it gives us an opportunity to present storylines for athletes. I use this example all the time, like the NBA. I'm a huge NBA fan. I watch every Chicago Bulls game. I got NBA League Pass. I'm obsessed with the Bulls, right? But the Bulls this season, they're probably not even going to make the playoffs, to be honest with you. They're going to be fighting and struggling for the last play-in spot to even get into the playoffs. But because I get to watch their storyline develop throughout the course of 82 games, and, I got prior experience with these athletes from seasons past, it's an opportunity for me to pull for somebody and become a fan of somebody that I know is not going to win the championship. And no other jiu-jitsu promotion really offers that. If it's a one-night event, let's call it a 16-man bracket, there's 4 rounds, but if you lose in round 1, your story is over. There's no going, the only part of your story that ever gets told is that guy lost to the champion in round 1 or whatever. They play 12 matches throughout the course of the week. Each athlete has 12 matches Monday through Thursday. And the top 8 go into the playoff bracket on Friday. And so you get a chance to see a storyline get written, which is what people get invested in. People are invested in stories. So I get to watch you rise and fall, and I get to see you fail on night 1 and have an incredible night 3, or I get to watch you scrap your way back into the playoffs and barely make it in, or I get to watch you be the number 1 guy, or I get to watch your dreams get crushed as you didn't make the playoff or whatever. But there's an opportunity for me just to fall in love with you as an athlete and your story rather than just the guy who wins the championship or the guy who makes it into the final.
Man, that's such a key innovation. Like, how many times have you gone to a tournament, or maybe you've had a buddy go to a tournament and they lose in round one to the guy who goes on and wins the whole thing, or places, on the podium and the whole thing or whatnot. And then you're like, well, you kind of, you can see why it didn't work out, but you never felt like that person got an opportunity to show their game or to shine. Because what happens if they went up against someone else who maybe wasn't going to win the tournament, someone who's at their same level? And at the end of the day, what's going to grow jiu-jitsu is fun matches. At the end of the day, if you think about it, I mean, people like us, or me personally, I really respect watching Gordon Ryan just smother someone for 45 minutes and the other guy can't do anything. That's cool to me. I can respect that as a martial artist. But average Joe, who's never seen martial arts before, he thinks that's boring. He's like, I don't want to watch 45 minutes of one dude on top of the other. Like, stupid. It seems like a waste of their time. But if it's a scrappy match where these guys are going after it, and maybe, like you said, they've got a bit of an underdog story that this person's bought into, that's going to be a much better match. You can have two purple belts who are really freaking good and they're at the same level, and they're going to have the most exciting match you've ever seen. Way more exciting than watching Gordon smother someone for 40 minutes. Although, again, I might, as a martial artist, appreciate Gordon's style and his mastery more. But to average Joe, those two purple belts, that's going to be what he would rather watch, if that makes sense.
Oh, it definitely makes sense. And we ran that experiment really with the first 5 seasons of the PGF by just using local regional athletes. And we just open rank. Anybody that can get in. And we would hold qualifiers, and we would just take the athletes from the qualifiers. And I mean, last season, so we have a draft to start the season as well. Last season, the guy who got drafted, he was the last pick in the draft. His name is Landon Tourville. He was the lowest paid player in the league. And that guy came out and he submitted all 3 opponents on night 1, blue belt. Submitted all 3 opponents on night 1, ended up making the playoff, slid in at the number 8 spot, made the playoff. Black belts didn't make the playoff, and this blue belt did, dude. And to me, like, what other format is there where a guy like that, where you get a chance to watch him all season long and become a fan? Like, that's the real beauty of the PGF to me.
Yeah, that's very well said, man. I really like that take on it. It's unique, man. I think this thing's going to take off. And I know that to help achieve that goal, you've recruited a team of superstars, man. And I'd love to ask you about that. You seem like you've assembled the Justice League of Jiu-Jitsu on this goal. So can you talk a little bit about that? Talk about who else is involved with you, and specifically, how did you get all these people involved? How like, what strings did you pull, man, to get this?
Well, it's crazy how it all came together. So the PGF has always just been me and Keelan, and we started it together, and we've been, the lion's share of the work and the prep and everything, like every task that there is to do, like pretty much me and Keelan have been doing it, or somebody's been going, yeah, I'll help for free. Like, that's kind of how we've run the show. It's pretty much just been run out of my back pocket for the most part so far. Well, during season 5, Epic Roll, it's a really great jiu-jitsu brand, they were one of the team sponsors. So they came in to sponsor a team. Well, it turns out that this guy named Zoltan Bathory, he is one of the owners of Epic Roll. And when his team came down, he decided to come down and spend the week in Alabama, just participating and kind of helping coach, be there to support his team. Well, Zoltan is the guitar player, the founder of a rock band called Five Finger Death Punch. It's one of the biggest rock bands in the world, heavy metal, which is like totally outside. Like, I don't know anything about heavy metal music, right? But this dude is also he's been a martial artist his whole life. He's a black belt in Judo. He's a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. He competes in, like masters divisions with IBJJF whenever he can. He'll take breaks off tour just to drop in and do a competition if there's one nearby. Like, he's about it, So he comes off tour. He's on tour with Metallica. He comes off tour, comes and hangs out in Decatur for the week to be there around the jiu-jitsu stuff. And he was like, man, this is super unique. Like, what are you what are you going to do with this? Like, what are your plans? It's like, well, long-term vision. This is what I want to do. I want it to be a real sport. I want to have an actual sports league with jiu-jitsu. And we just started the conversation. So me, him, and Keelan, we're kind of working on it. And he goes, who we really need for this is Heather Gracie. And this is Carlos Gracie's granddaughter. And so we bring her into the equation. And so now we've got, all the full force of the 5-finger death punch media machine. Plus we have one of the Gracies like extending their family legacy through the PGF. And so that's the ownership group now. It's me, Keelan, Zoe, and Heather. And it's been crazy. We moved the PGF office over to Las Vegas where they're at. And it's been nuts, dude. I've been back and forth to Las Vegas. I feel like more than I've been at home in the last 2 months.
Dude, that's crazy. Let's just pause on that for a second, because I want to hear about some of the coaches and I want to hear about some of the athletes too, but just want to linger on this a little more. Like, what was that like, man, when you had the dude from 5-Finger Death Punch basically offer to be a part of this? Like, can you just tell us a bit about, like, what did that do for you as that's a pretty significant moment in a person's career, at least from my view. What was that like?
Yeah, for sure. It felt great to be validated, by somebody. This guy's a serial entrepreneur, Heather as well. They own many businesses. Like, so just think about all the rock star money that you make. Instead of turning that around on whatever rock stars spend their money on, he's turning it around and investing and becoming, like, putting into this business and growing businesses all over the place. So to have somebody who's a real entrepreneur to take a look at it and go, well, you guys have done a good job with this. I'd like to see if we can push this further with my help. And same thing with Heather, see if she can take her connections and her business savvy and help us push it forward. It's real validation. Made me feel really good that they even wanted to talk about it. Right. But then the things that they bring to the table has been just like mind-boggling, like the connections that they have and the resources that they're able to put in front of us and help us take advantage of. It's been a real game changer. I mean, we're taking the pot for season 6. It's $100,000 to the winning team. It's $20,000 more to the guy who wins the championship on Friday night. So, and then everybody gets paid for coming to the PGA, which has always been the case. Everybody gets paid just for showing up. And, that's a big difference in the way that other promotions run it as well. Like, usually all the pot or the lion's share of the pot's going to the top guy. But we want to establish something where everybody who comes and puts down for the league and for jiu-jitsu is getting a piece of the pie.
Man, I love that. And like you said, you have to get more money into the sport. That's something people don't understand, is the level of everything will rise the more money there is, because that means people don't have to have a job while they're also training jiu-jitsu. They can just do jiu-jitsu. And that's going to then evolve the martial art for everyone, really. Because if you look at the top guys, the techniques that they figure out and that they make work in competition, people study that. They teach it to others. They coach on it. These guys go and make a DVD about their thing that happened, and then people study that. And the techniques, they percolate out. So if someone gets better at jiu-jitsu at a high level and they're sharing that information, that grows everywhere. It grows the whole martial art, which is what we need. Otherwise, it's gonna eventually stagnate. And we want to keep it growing. We want to keep it going. Get more people involved.
For sure.
Well, thanks for everything you're doing, man. I mean, you're putting in the work that a lot of people aren't even willing to do.
Yeah, well, it's a crazy idea. I don't know what what I'm thinking, but I'm gonna try. I find myself in a really interesting position we have the only sports jiu-jitsu league now, and then I get to do commentary for all the other big promotions like UFC Fight Pass, Invitational, the ADCC, EBI, Combat Jiu-Jitsu, Subversive, pretty much all the big shows. I get to be there and be one of the voices on the broadcast as well. And so I find myself in this crazy position where like I have an opportunity to do what I can to try to push the sport forward and leave something for everybody else when I'm gone. And it's just on my heart to do that. I want this to be something really beautiful and special for all of us. And so I'm trying my best. You know,
You're doing, man.
I'm not always doing the perfect job, but I am trying. We want to get the whole sport on board.
Yeah, man, you're doing more than trying. You're taking a ton of action. You're doing. And just wanted to ask you this question. So going off what you just said, you worked at all these different organizations. You've seen behind the scenes of ADCC. You've been a part of the crew, essentially, that puts these things on. What are some of the things that you notice about other organizations that you really are trying to model in the PGF? Is there anything from these other organizations that you're like, oh man, I really want to replicate on that? You know, I really want to, like, is there anything there that kind of inspired you, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
For sure. I mean, I think each of the promotions has got their own like pros and cons, you know, like ADCC, I think is incredible. They're doing a great job of setting up storyline through the ADCC Opens and on into the trials and then into the big show, but they're really just running, every 2 years, you know what I'm saying? And so they're doing a good job of filling in that 2-year period with the Opens and the qualifiers, which I really like. Combat Jiu-Jitsu, I think, is one of the most entertaining, if not the most entertaining formats, where Eddie really prioritizes, rather than a live event that everybody comes to, he prioritizes trying to have a really nice TV product. So that was something that I learned from. It was like, oh, I don't necessarily have to be in the selling live gate business. Like, we can just be in the media side and we can do this just as a media product. And that really cuts back on a lot of the potential headaches and like extra skills that I have to gain in order to pull this off. So that was a big lesson that I learned from watching Eddie and Vic do their thing with CJJ and EBI. AIGA runs a really cool promotion. If you haven't seen AIGA, I really like some of the ideas that they run with. So I'm just trying to like pick and choose the best from everybody, but really more than any of the other jiu-jitsu promotions, I'm watching, how does the NBA do this? How does the NFL do this? How does NCAA basketball do this? Those are the places where I'm really trying to draw the most inspiration from, because I feel like that's more applicable to what we're doing than, you know, how the one night promotion does it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I've always heard that genius is when you can do that kind of a thing, when you can look at other industries or other areas and you can figure out a way to apply it to something where it has not been applied already. So,
yeah, I don't know about genius, but redneck for sure. I'm definitely a redneck. So
how about redneck?
I'm just
redneck genius.
Liz, I'll let you call it what you want.
But dude, so I want to talk a little bit about the coaches, because again, you're part of this Justice League that has come together. You got some big name coaches. Can you tell us a little bit about how did you go about recruiting these people? And I guess, what did you have to tell them to get them on board? Were they on board right away, or was there some difficulty in getting coaches?
They were on board right away. Everybody that we've talked to and tried to get involved in this has pretty much been like, whoa, this is incredible. Let me know when you need me and I'm there. So, I mean, Heather being a part of the Gracie family, that was our connection to Hajer. So she's the one that made that happen. I'm one of Eddie's black belts, so I made that happen. And then we just reached out to Hegan. Heather and Zoe both have a good relationship with Hegan, particularly Heather. So that was an easy play. And then, who's my other one? Andre. I don't really know Andre. And so we just reached out to him and told him what we were up to.
It's amazing what you can make happen off of cold DMs and cold pitches a lot of times. Just sending someone.
Yeah. And those weren't all totally cold, right? Like when we go to Andre, we already have Hajer and Eddie at the table. Like it's, oh, Hajer's involved. Like it's pretty easy to say yes to, like, I'm going to be basically competing against Hajer. Like they're not going to be competing on the mats, but their teams are going to be competing against each other, you know. And then there's a lot of unique things that no other promotion really offers you an opportunity to be involved in this way. Like they're going to pick their own team at the draft on Sunday, and they're going to coach that team through each athlete through 12 matches throughout the week. and then maybe potentially 3 more if they get to the final of the bracket on Friday. So it's a chance for like exposure to these athletes and a chance to actually help them rather than just sit on the sideline and play a figurehead. But also they get to draft a team and try to throw it up there. So it's competitive for them as well. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it makes sense. I would want to do it. Like if I was on the outside looking in, I would be like, dude, how do I be a coach? That looks like a lot of fun.
Well, and you said something that there's a lot of wisdom in something you said, which is that once you got Hodger involved, and what was the other name you said? I'm sorry, or Eddie, right?
I got Hodger, I got Andre Galvan, I got Eddie Bravo, I got Higan Machado.
But like you said, once you got Hodger and Eddie, and you got those two through your network, basically through, or well, your friend group, essentially. And then once you had those two involved, it made it so now everyone else, not only they want to be involved, but they would probably hate to be excluded, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Then it's like, oh
yeah, 100%. Well, and we're throwing out the biggest payday in jiu-jitsu history to these athletes.
Yeah.
Like nobody's ever had a payday over $100,000 that I'm aware of.
That's amazing.
I think a couple of promotions have gotten up to 100, but that's just our team prize.
Yeah.
That doesn't count our roster salary and the champion salary.
Yeah.
So, and then the athletes make money in other ways through bonuses. And, you know, we have a whole structure. I feel like we have the business really set up in an intelligent way to where this is going to be, and which is super important to me. This is going to be sustainable. I'm not coming to put on a 1-night event or a 1-week event. Like, oh, we came in and we did it one time and it was cool. And do y'all remember PGF back in the day? Like we want to have something that lives like beyond me. Like I want to like really build the entire sport up so that the next generation has it even better. And then the next generation has it even better so that jiu-jitsu can really be a thing that somebody could pursue with their whole self, you know?
Yeah, man. That's very well said. And, dude, let's talk a little bit about the athlete, because I feel like that's kind of the superstar here, right? So let's say that there is an athlete who's watching this and they're like, man, I'm freaking really good. I've been winning all the tournaments. I feel like I'm ready for some opportunity like this. How would that person go about getting involved in the PGF and trying to get on one of these teams?
So right now, the only way that's left in is through the qualifier. It's on March the 1st. It's in Las Vegas. You can look it up on Smooth Comp. It's free to enter. It's totally free to enter. We're looking for 175-pound athletes. The winner of that qualifier, and I think there's 19 people signed up as of this morning. I think we're like a week and a half out from the qualifier. But really, if you're a 175-pound athlete and you win that qualifier, you're going to automatically get a spot on the roster. But if you come out and show out at the qualifier and don't win, we're probably going to take a couple of athletes that are interested in the PGF enough to enter the qualifier. We're probably going to grab a couple of those guys and put them on the roster as well. But as far as special invites go, I mean, I'm sitting on close to 300 applications from brown and black belts that are trying to get in. Like, I mean, pretty much none of those guys are going to get in at this point. Like there's not really any invitations left. It's all about that qualifier from here forward.
That makes sense. So I guess you'll be doing qualifiers before each season then, correct? Is that the plan?
Yeah, we've always done qualifiers. We started that, I think, in season 2. And I think it's a great way to like get the athletes invested, and we get to start telling these stories for these athletes a little bit ahead of time. It's like the guy who wins the qualifier, he enters the season with a ready-made storyline. Like we've already seen this guy fight his way through a bracket. He won. He's the guy who won his way onto the show. Everybody else got invited, but this guy earned his way. Like that's a great story right off the bat.
Yeah.
And you know, last year, one of the qualifier winners, Landon Torville, again, this kid was, and not to be rude, but like he was a nobody coming in. He was a blue belt, just happened to win a qualifier, and he came in and he finished in the top 8, kept black belts on the sideline for the playoff.
That's crazy, man. That's one of the things that I've always loved about jiu-jitsu is the underdog ability. Because if you think about big sport, for example, you got to get scouted. You got to have been playing that sport basically since you were a kid. There's like this whole little system that goes into how you actually get onto some like NFL team, for example. Not just anyone who's good at football can go to the NFL. You have to be like, there's a very specific process that you go through. And I've always loved that with jiu-jitsu, anyone can sign up for the ADCC trials. And if you win, suddenly you're the next big thing. And that's like one of the coolest things. So I love that you're retaining that aspect of jiu-jitsu tournaments, but then stealing a bunch of the other good stuff from the NFL. But you're kind of still making it that this is still the everyman sport. This is still like, you can be coming from nothing. You can be a Jacob Couch kind of person, and you're still can be a superstar. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to go through some process that's too complicated for you to even understand.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's an important part of what we're trying to do, for sure. I think the qualifiers this year, we're just having the one qualifier. You know, we're turning around everything really fast right here. I'm taking on a lot of new tasks and a lot of new scale that I'm not used to. And so this is all like a huge learning process for me. So I didn't want to get overwhelmed with too many qualifiers coming into this season. So we just put the one. March 1st, Vegas. It's on Smooth Comp. Just look up PGF qualifier. It's free to enter. Free to enter. Like, we didn't even put a registration fee on it. We're just looking for gangsters.
And you said there's 19 people signed up.
I think so far.
Dude, that's not many people.
Yeah, well, I haven't really been advertising it all that much.
Yeah.
You know, I've just kind of put it up there on Smooth Comp and then talk about it on podcast a little bit and then let the chips fall where they may.
But you know what's going to happen?
Pretty gangster lineup, though.
The right people will show up because they're the seekers who are seeking it out. They know that this is an opportunity and they did the research to figure out how to do it. It's like a little like breadcrumbs. That's really wise, man. That's really smart. And then you have all these people who applied, but who's going to actually go through and sign up for the qualifier and book your trip out there and et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's a next level commitment.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be and again, man, we're not going to just take the winner. Like, we're going to be looking at the performances from everybody else throughout the bracket. And some of those guys are going to get invited on the spot right there.
Dude, that's epic. Well, I'll try to spread the word because I know some athletes who are interested. They were asking me about it. And I was like, I don't know. I have to figure this out because I was also curious. I was curious because I've got a team now, Jiu-Jitsu Outlet, and we're actually filming this here in the new Jiu-Jitsu Outlet Academy. It's been open.
What up?
And I would love to send a student your way one of these days. Get someone signed up.
Send them to the qualifier.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell them to be on the lookout for the next one, man. But hey, I've got just one more question for you, man. This is something I'm super curious about. And I know you might not be able to talk specifics about this, but you're someone who works with a lot of the biggest organizations in grappling right now. You know, you work with ADCC, you work with Toehold, for instance, you know, all the different sponsors that you work with. When I was coming up, because I started 14 years ago, it was always said, you know, there's no money in jiu-jitsu. Everyone in jiu-jitsu is broke. Super. And I was just curious, like, your interactions with these companies, are they like hurting to put this money out, or are they doing pretty damn good these days? Like, what's kind of your impression there over how much money these jiu-jitsu brands, how much money are they actually making? I've always been curious about that.
Depends on the company, man. Just like any industry, the companies that are run well are profitable. The companies that are not run well are struggling. And I think the same thing is true in jiu-jitsu. And I think the same thing is true with our athletes and our stars in the sport. Like, the people who know how to make money, they find a way to make money in jiu-jitsu. So like, people are always like, oh, there's no money in jiu-jitsu. Well, if you don't know how to make money, there's no money in any industry for you. So that's a separate skill set that you have to learn to pick up. Like, if you're in the heating and air conditioning game and you don't know how to make money, or you're uncomfortable asking for a sale, or you're uncomfortable marketing yourself, there's not going to be any money in that game for you either. But there's some people who are crushing that game with their business. And if you're in the construction business, you own a construction company or home remodeling or whatever, and you don't know how to make money, you don't have the skill of making money, you don't have the skill of business, then you're going to think there's no money in that game. But there's a lot of money in that game. You know, some people suck at flipping houses. Some people are crushing it. Like, any industry you go into, there's money there to be made, and there's almost certainly enough for whoever wants to go get it to go and get it. But it's a skill set that you have to pick up for sure. Like, I'm a nobody. I make all of my living off of jiu-jitsu, and I don't even take a check from my academy. You know what I'm saying? I don't make $1 from my academy. but I make plenty of money like on the outside doing other things through jiu-jitsu. So there's money to be made, but there's a skill set to be acquired as well. I guess that's my answer.
Just to go a little deeper on that, because I know we got a lot of folks who listen to this show who are entrepreneurs, or they're a little more entrepreneurial, or they want to own a business someday. What can you speak a little bit to that skill set? Like, what specific skills do you think people need, especially in this market?
You need good systems thinking. You need sales skills. You need promotional and marketing skills. You need to know how to run a funnel online. You need to understand the importance of multiple revenue streams, how to speak to a sponsor, how to deliver for a sponsor. Like there's a lot that goes into it, but it's not different things that are specific to jiu-jitsu. These are things that you're going to have to learn how to do if you open a restaurant, or if you are a massage therapist, or if you any kind of entrepreneurial endeavor, you're going to have to learn these skills. Like sales skills transfers across every industry. Understanding how an online funnel works transfers across every industry. So yeah, I don't think there's any specific to jiu-jitsu business skills that need to be acquired. You might have to learn how to navigate the jiu-jitsu ecosystem with a little bit more nuance, but what works in business A works in business Z as well. So they're really like entrepreneurial principles that can be acquired from any ebook for free. You know what I mean? Just get on YouTube and start studying on how to run a better business, how to run a cleaner business, start thinking in systems so that you can replicate and scale.
Yeah, it's very well said. There's these fundamentals that cross all different industries, no matter what you're doing.
For sure.
Man, if you know how to sell, you're never going to go hungry a day in your life. There's always stuff.
If you can sell and if you can public speak, then you can do any industry. You can get involved in any industry that you want. Public speaking is a huge skill that a lot of jiu-jitsu guys just don't have. And I think if you've got any skill plus public speaking, you can make a living doing that.
That's very well said. It's very well said. You're one of those guys. For sure.
I put a lot of work into being a decent public speaker over the years, even before I got into jiu-jitsu. Like that was something that I understood, and because it was taught to me and I saw the importance of it, like that's going to be something that's going to pay off for you in the long run.
Something I notice about you is you don't have any filler words. You don't
work hard on that.
I'm a big liker. I'm always saying, it's, like this man, right? Or whatever. You use like inappropriately. And that's something I've been conscious of. But so something I don't ever notice with you is you don't do that.
I definitely do it. Everybody does it. But I definitely try to, like, for instance, I'm going to try to think of something to say. I don't go, I'll just pause until I have the thing that I want to say. And that's really all it is. Like that. I just did it right there. I just said like right there. That's really all it is just taking your time. Don't rush your speech, and be succinct when you need to be succinct. There's no reason to keep explaining something. Like just say it. I do say like. I just heard myself say like again. You lied to me.
Well, I guess what I mean is it's not super noticeable. For a lot of people, you hear them talk and it's the first thing you hear because it's every other word or whatever. And that's me. It's me on a lot of times.
That's pretty much everybody. We all do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any way to really avoid it. It's pretty tough.
Just got to keep podcasting, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming back on the show. Before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to talk about related to growing the sport? Like, do you have any other thoughts you want to share on that?
I think there's enough room for everybody. I don't view the PGF really as competition to any other promotions. I want all the other promotions to become as big as possible. I think that's good for everybody. And so I think that's really my major philosophy is that I think there's enough for everybody. So ADCC, AIGA, CJJ, UFC Fight Pass Invitational, I want all those to be as big as possible because the higher that they push the ceiling, the harder I have to push to grow bigger. And so for me, I really look at it as a privilege at this point to be even in the conversation with a lot of these guys. And I'm going to I'm not training to be the world champion in jiu-jitsu,
Right.
but I'm working hard to become the champion of this thing that I am pursuing. So it's killing season. I'm out to get mine. So I'm just trying to work my hardest, man.
Dude, that's awesome. And I feel like it says a lot about the industry as a whole that you're still a very critical part of a lot of these other promotions, right? And it seems like I feel like that's the vibe I get from a lot of them, is that jiu-jitsu for the most part is a pretty collaborative industry, at least from what
it should be. It should be. And you know what, man? I try to work my hardest and do the best possible job and be as nice as I can to everybody that I deal with. So if I'm going to work for one of these promotions, I go to work for them and I do it for them.
Yeah.
Not for the clout or whatever, or the paycheck or whatever it is for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to put on for you guys, and I'm going to treat whoever I encounter like I love them and like they're really important. And I think that everybody appreciates that, so that when it's time for me to work on my thing, I got this great group of people that I've been supporting that are happy to turn around and support me. And so we all can grow together. And I think that's really important. And I think jiu-jitsu needs that. I think that's good for all of us. Every rule set brings a different pro to the table, and every promotion brings a different set of pros to the table. So, we're just trying to do a little of the same and grow bigger than all these guys while they have tremendous success.
Yeah.
I want to use their success to climb.
Yep. Yep. That's something I've really experienced, opening this academy here. And, because what I've realized, I've talked to now a couple hundred people. It's like a few months we've been in business, couple hundred people I've spoken to who maybe didn't sign up for jiu-jitsu for one reason or another. And out of all those people, maybe 2 of them said the reason they didn't sign up with us was because they went and signed up with the competitor. Every other person was like, oh, my car broke down. Oh, I'm sick. School's too busy. They're in soccer. They're in football. They're in basketball. You know what I mean? Like, the other jiu-jitsu organizations is not who we're competing with. We should all be trying to collaborate and work together. The people we need to worry about is soccer or basketball, football. You know what I mean? Like, these are the big competition that we have for growing jiu-jitsu. At the end of the day, jiu-jitsu people love to support other jiu-jitsu people, and we love watching jiu-jitsu. It's cool. Like, we're trying to grow the pool of jiu-jitsu people, jiu-jitsu fans. To do that, like you've been saying, we got to steal from the NFL and the NBA. And if we want to become like that, then we've got to do what those organizations are doing. And from what I can tell, they do a lot of collaboration and a lot of co-marketing and a lot of like cross promoting of each other and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it's super important that we all get on board with, this is good. The jiu-jitsu is good. And we owe it to the world to let them see jiu-jitsu.
Very well said, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on the show. And just tell us real quick, where can people go if they want to learn more about the PGF or if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
Instagram, PGF World. We've also got a new YouTube channel. We've always been doing this on my pages, on brandonmc.ninja, on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. But for this season, with this kind of chapter 2 of the PGF, started our own YouTube channel, started our own Instagram. So jump over there, follow us there. PGF's going to be free to watch all week long. That's another important part of what we're doing. The NFL is not hiding behind a paywall. NBA is not hiding behind a paywall. It's out there where people can see it and take it in and engage with it. And so the PGF all week long is going to be free to watch on YouTube and other platforms like Twitch. The finale is going to be behind a paywall. I can't announce where that's going to be hosted yet, but it's going to be a big deal when we announce it. So I'm excited to talk about that when the time comes. But Sunday through Thursday for PGF week, starting April 21st, the draft and the entire regular season, including announcing the team that won the $100,000, all going to be right there for free on YouTube for everybody to see.
That's so cool, man. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for everything you're doing, all the hard work. It's much appreciated by the community.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. I'll put all the links down below. So if you're watching, go check out those links, click them, and then click the next buttons that say like follow or subscribe or whatever. Dude, thanks so much for coming on the show, Brandon. I appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.